Hello, everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on rashpixel.fm. I'm Pete Wright, and that right there, is Nikki Kinzer.
Right here.
Hi, Nikki.
Hello, Pete. How
Happy
are you?
day. I'm so good. It's our last day of the year. I'm wearing a fuzzy hat.
You are.
And my head's getting hot today already. I've been wearing this for about 15 minutes, and I'm smoking up under here.
You look like Santa.
This is not good.
You even have the beard. You even have the gray beard going on. It's kind of gray, brown.
I do.
It's a mix.
I do. I try every year. I'm embracing my inner Santa a little bit more. I am a symbol of Christmas.
Yes, you are.
And we're talking, this is the very last episode of the year. It is our annual, now I think it's officially annual, that it's our Q&A episode. Our holiday Q&A episode. End of the year.
It's annual now. I don't know.
This is definitely the second one.
Yes.
Maybe the third. I don't remember. But this is a really fun way for us to end the year, and we so appreciate you. We presented a call for questions, and boy, did we get them. There are all sorts of great questions to talk about today. I hope we can do this in a timely fashion. We shall see. But
it may be a little longer episut than normal.
Yeah. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to add chapters. So if you're in your podcast player of choice, it supports chapters like Apple Podcasts or Overcast. The big ones support chapters. You can skip forward and backward in chapters. I've started doing that as of the last episode or two, and we'll continue to do that if it's something that is easy for folks. So there you go.
Great.
So first, do we need to talk about group coaching?
Yes.
Let's do that then.
So group coaching enrollment is open now, and it will be through the end of the year and also the very beginning of January. The deadline to sign up is January 9th, and coaching groups will begin on the week of January 14th. There's 3 different groups you can choose from, 3 different days, 3 different times, so nice variety there. The Monday group is going to be designated for just women with ADHD, and the other 2 groups are open to anybody and everybody, and doesn't matter if you're male or female. Come and join our group. And let's see what else. Connection, motivation, inspiration. It's a wonderful time to connect with your community, share your story, listen to other people's stories. Accountability. You're never going to find a better accountability type of environment than with your people who get you. And we have conversation in between sessions, and I've got a weekly workshop that I do, and I have focused work time that I do. I mean, there's just a lot to it. So it's a great service. I hope you will join us. And if you would like to, sign up as soon as you can, because the groups are limited. The amount of people that I can take is limited. I like to try to keep them fairly small.
It's ADHD musical chairs. The music will stop.
Yes. So grab your chair.
Man, I hate that game.
I do too. It's so stressful.
Terrible game.
And the
that
anxiety.
Dodgeball. Oh.
Well, dodgeball just hurts. But the chair thing just really bothers me.
I won a bunt cake once. That was something. There are no bunt cakes in the group coaching because it's virtual. But you could get your own bunt cake.
Not yet. Maybe there will be.
There will be. That's right. You never know.
I'm open to all ideas.
I'm definitely open to bunt cake. Well, you should really head over to Take Control ADHD and get to know us a little bit better. You can listen to the show there on the website or subscribe to our mailing list and get an email each time a new episode is released. You can connect with us on Twitter or Facebook at Take Control ADHD. And what better time of year is there to support this show on Patreon, listener-supported podcasting? Visit us at patreon.com/the ADHD podcast. And you have the opportunity to share with us some of your dollars, your doubloons, your shekels, your euros, whatever you want to share with us to help us keep this show growing and thriving and strong. We sure appreciate that. It has been an absolutely epic transformation on this show and what we do and what we look forward to and what we're planning for the coming year, to have this kind of support. It is an amazing gift, and hopefully, a few bucks a month from you, you have no idea how far it goes. Just a few bucks a month from you for us, it's a big deal. It's a really big deal, and for us, this is, as a result of this, it's becoming a bigger part of our career, and we're allowing ourselves to think, more creatively as a result of direct support. It's amazing. It is just amazing. So, thank you for being a part of this community, for helping us, and for using the holiday motivation to help those in need who are making
we could be a stocking stuffer.
We could be a great stocking stuffer.
Subscription to Patreon community.
To Patreon, to the community, and not just us. There are so many fantastic, groups on Patreon who are making their careers independently, and so just share the love with your communities that are important to you. This one is certainly of critical importance to me. So we'll talk more about that in a little bit. So that's it. That's what we got. Now, questions. The Q&A.
Now we can go into the questions.
What do you think? Where would you like to start?
You are such a good question person. Like, you've got that voice that just really does well with questions. So
you think I should start with this first one right here?
I think so.
All right.
And keep going.
All right, here we go. Hello. I am wondering if there have been any studies involving marijuana use by teens with ADHD or similar disorders. Now, that's the end of the question. I read this question, and I think I misread it, and then read it again, and so we have to come at it from two directions.
Well, yes, because the notes that I'm reading about how you're responding to this is much different than the notes I have. Yeah.
So, do you want to go first?
Sure, because I don't really have a lot of information.
Okay.
And I'll be very honest about that. I think that part of it is that I don't work with teenagers with ADHD. So this is not something that has come up in my world all that much. It's come up in my world because I have teenagers. And so I'm certainly very aware of the marijuana usage, especially in Oregon and Washington and some of the other states where it's legal. I think it has a little bit different I think kids think of it a little bit differently than maybe they used to because it's legal. So for me, I don't have the answer to this. I haven't researched it. I don't know what the studies are looking like. I know that for a lot of ADDers, this is what I do know. A lot of ADDers do use drugs and alcohol as a coping tool. So I could see it definitely coming into play. But in my opinion, this is probably a question that I would, if it was asked directly to me, I would say, I think you should probably talk to somebody who specializes in addiction and have some better insights about how the two connect. However, Pete Wright has all kinds of information.
Sometimes I decide to hyper-focus on something and it just
and do
unravels.
some research.
Well, look, this is something we've had this question, I think, before in different contexts, right? And so, I check the links and I check the research that comes up, and I start digging a little bit, and the challenge here is that it is absolutely believed, to a wide degree, that, marijuana, allows you to avoid the unpleasant side effects of ADHD, while having that same impact of, increasing dopamine production, as prediction stimulants like Ritalin and Adderall and Concerta. And so, when I read this question, the first thing I'm reading is like, hey, could marijuana help teens if they're already smoking it? Maybe... Hey, maybe there's a way of eating the brownies.
Maybe there's a benefit there.
That just shows where my head is. That's not great, but
no, that's not where my head went.
No, I know, and so, but that's kind of where I am, and most of it is because of this other issue around CBD oil. So we'll talk about that in a second. So the challenge here is that there is wildly inconclusive research, right? There is just no, set of studies that have come together and said, boom, marijuana is going to help you, with your ADHD. It's going to help everybody. You're going to be 18, you're sitting in class and you're going to eat a gummy and suddenly you're going to feel like, you'll be able to focus. There's just nothing that confirms that. And so,
well, and we just have to say, so I have to say something because there's a difference and we don't know exactly why she's asking this or exactly how she's asking this.
Right.
But there is a difference between medical marijuana and regular marijuana, right? So the medical marijuana, and I don't know the differences. So please,
well, there are, and I did dig up a little bit of research on this. So medical weed usually contains higher CBD content than recreational. So, according to this is docmj.com, there's a great write up there about the differences between medical and recreational marijuana. Higher CBD in medical marijuana, lower THC content than recreational weed in medical marijuana. That means you don't get as high when you're on medical marijuana. So that's, I think, what you're talking about there. You need a recommendation, obviously, for medical marijuana. Recreational marijuana can be bought by anyone. But, it's interesting. I have neighbors with a license for medical marijuana, and they grow it themselves. And I know they're not taking any of this stuff into consideration, right, about what kind of weed they're growing. And so another interesting note on this, that medical weed, that it has higher CBD content, specifically, there is no actual difference between the concentrates and flowers of both types. Medical edible potency is frequently higher on medical weed than recreational. That is the problem right here, is that we're on a long road toward legalization for marijuana across the country, around the world, right? And that the regulation is in such a way that we just can't, and research has just not come far enough along to be able to have enough studies, a concentration of enough studies that say this is going to have an impact, positive or negative. But what we do know and what the studies do say, and this is my concern around teen use of marijuana, is not ideological, right? You have to come to terms with that on your own. Whatever your ideology is around marijuana use and age, that's something that you can deal with. Mine is physiological, that there is a direct and strong correlation between marijuana use, particularly in teens, and cardiac function. And if you've got heart issues going on, it can lead to some really significant challenges. As somebody with heart issues buried in my genetic code, I'm not eager to explore that, whatever the thing. So enter CBD,
and anxiety
right?
too. Because it will trigger an anxiety attack.
Yeah. And so, enter CBD oil, right? This extract is really growing in popularity as another means to control ADHD symptoms, but it's even more questionable as production is so wildly unregulated. Again, it's just, you're not sure what you're getting is what's on the label, and that's really tricky. So you're making your brain a risky laboratory. Your teens' brains are a risky laboratory if you go this route. And I think we just don't know
enough.
And so, it's so great for some things, and and it's just a question for others. So that's why I'm leery about it. There's just too much unknown. Okay, next question. Here we go. Are you exhausted? That was the first question. Exhausted was too much.
No. I'm reading this next question, and I'm just like, oh man, I could have written it.
Yeah, right.
I probably did write it. I have
maybe you did
written these words
sleeping?
somewhere in a journal, to my doctor, to my therapist, to my trainer. I'm sure it's out there. So yeah,
I relate to this one too. Here we go. I have always struggled with my weight. I get excited to try new diets or eating plans. I do good for a few days, then I get bummed when I have a bad day, and I lose all motivation. It has been a vicious cycle all my life. Are there any strategies to try and get out of this cycle, Nikki?
Well, I'll tell you, when I first read this, first of all, like I said, this is my life. I could have written this. I could write it right now. And my fear of just going and giving you these strategies is that we've heard them all. I'm pretty sure that this person who has, tried a new diet plan, has worked out, they probably know what they need to do, and how to do it. but something for me anyway has stopped me from doing it. And so I'm still trying to figure it out. And all I can tell you to all of our listeners is that it's helped me to go to therapy to try to figure out why I am so resistant in taking care of myself. And and it's not just exercise, but it's all of that. So I am there with this person. Like, I am right there with you, side by side. You're not alone. But it is helping me to talk out other things with my therapist to try to figure out why I'm not making that a priority. Why am I making it so hard? What makes it so hard? And you know, it's a journey. I'm trying to figure it out. So I hate to even say, oh, start small, do this, because I know it's hard to do those things. You know, we've talked about many habits, doing one push-up a day. Well, I can tell you there's been many days where I haven't done one push-up, and I can't really tell you why, you know? So anyway, that's, I wish I had answers. I wish I had an answer to that, but I just don't.
It's a hard one. And for me, I've been there too. And I've told the stories here, and I've come off of a summer of nastiness. And I think that the thing for me that I think about is that, my future is made up of a present of very small choices, right? Every choice just adds up to a mesh of, that makes a pattern. And so I've taken to really, my mindfulness practice is now really about thinking about my family, and not my family today, but my family in 30 years. I think about my retirement plan with my wife on a farm somewhere where I'm writing books and she's herding chickens or something, and how badly I want to be there and healthy. And I think about my kids and their grown families, and coming home for the holidays and vacationing with them in fun places like we do with my our parents now, and how lame it would be if I can't participate in that because of some health condition, right? And I have to habituate thinking about those things when I turn the turn signal on to hit the drive-through at Krispy Kreme. I have to think about that. 30 years from now, where am I going to be? Because this one decision is not just one decision. I'm making a decision for that Pete 30 years from now, and that's not fair to him. I also have a fantasy, and this may help. This is going to sound really dark. So I want you to know that I mean it with great light. I can't wait to be at that point where I am told that I'm at my end of life, right? Because I'm going to go crazy on the donuts and the ho-hos, and it's going to be, you guys, a horror show. I am going to indulge like there is no tomorrow, because you know what? By then, I'm done, and I'm going to go out with a bang. That is my little fantasy. So I'm going to get through all of the great stuff, and then
I have a little story for you. So my grandfather, he died when he was 71, and this was many, many years ago. And I don't know how to explain him really, but he had an 8th grade education, lived a hard life, but survived, had a good family, made a living, did everything that he needed to do. But he was definitely a smoker and a drinker. And so he was having some problems with his stomach and went into the hospital, and they opened him up, and he had stomach cancer, and it was all over. And there was no way of getting out of this. Right. So he was not leaving the hospital. This was going to be the end. And so my mom, at the time I was in high school, I think, so I couldn't go visit him, but my mom did, and my dad. And so anyway, his last request was that he wanted to have that cigarette and beer. So they rolled him out in his little bed outside to have his last cigarette and have his beer. That's awesome. Yeah. I don't even know if he could even really take much of a drink or even, a drag of the cigarette, but he certainly had him in his hands, and that's what he wanted. So
that's what it's going to be, to go in peace. That's it.
Yeah. Something else I wanted to add real quick. This is opposite of all of that, but it has to do with the exercise.
Yeah.
Something that was told to me that has really resonated, and I've been thinking about it for a while, is that not focusing so much on the exercise, but focusing more on how I want to feel. And this really kind of goes with what you're saying, is you're looking at your future and you want to be there for those things. And for you to be there, you need to be healthy. You need to be taking care of yourself. And I think that in the past, I've focused so much on just getting the exercise done and not really concentrating or focusing so much about how I would feel if I got it done, you know? And so that was a little bit of a shift of how are you going to feel when you get this done? Or if it's just 5 minutes, how is that going to feel that you did 5 minutes and didn't do, you know, just the feelings of, because we always feel good after we're done, whether it's a 5-minute walk or a 20-30-minute walk.
Right.
I don't think many people will come back from exercise and saying, I regret that. That really sucked. I shouldn't do that again.
Yeah, right.
Just another little 2 cents to add there, but there you go.
Our next question comes from the Philippines.
Yes.
Hello, Philippines. As part of my question entry for the year-end Q&A of Madam Nikki Kinzer.
Madam President.
I've
been watching House of Cards. It's the only reason I said that is I've been watching House of Cards, and we have a Madam President in the House of Cards. Yes.
Oh,
please
dear.
go on.
As a part of the year-end question from Madam Nikki Kinzer, I'd like to ask if there is really a moment wherein ADHDers feel overly bored, which leads to severe depression. I'd like to know if it's part of the symptoms, since we, as people with ADHD, have low levels of serotonin and dopamine in nature. I found this really interesting to dig in on.
You have definitely some good points here. For me, when I read it, I just thought, you know, depression and anxiety are so common with ADHD. So I think her answer, or I mean, the direct answer is yes. I mean, I think there's a definite connection between the ADHD and the depression. I don't know if it would just stem from just boredom. I mean, I think it could be, but it could also be a lot of the things that are going on with the ADHD that's causing the depression. So yeah, I mean, and you know, my go-to too is I think that when anybody says severe depression, to me, that immediately says go to a doctor.
Yeah, get thee to a medical professional, right?
Yeah, and find out what's going on.
I found this really interesting because, after digging into it for a little bit, it turns out there is this locus of research around depression after success syndrome, right? And I don't know if that's certainly not a clinical term or a diagnosis, but it's something that you are not alone in experiencing this. And as Nikki says, it's depression is often a comorbid symptom of ADHD, right? It's something that comes out of it. But what's interesting about this is that, you know, what happens when you are in kind of hyper-focus mode, when you're working on a project, something you're very excited about, and you spend days and days and you're working on it, and you're way up here, and your, you know, dopamine production is high, and then you finish. The crash that comes after a period, right? There's a slump that comes after a period of high activity, high intensity, sort of high caloric, activity, and all of the noise that the hyper-focus behavior pushed out comes back in. All of the just, you know, the sort of the signal that your ADHD had been allowing you to push out comes back in all at once. And that can be lead to a more serious bout of depression and anxiety as a result of that period. And so I thought this was, interesting. One of the tips is, and it sounds kind of simplistic, but I like this. One of the tools is to keep challenging and entertaining activities. Keep a menu of activities on hand that you've never done, right? Something that once you're finished with a big project, don't take a lot of time to experience the slowdown, right? Start something else. Like maybe it's as simple as a puzzle, a 1,000-piece puzzle, or knitting, or something to get your hands busy immediately when you finish, to kind of taper down, right? This is your tapering behavior, and you think about it like tapering behavior after a run or after something to ease the landing, and that can stem that depression that comes after this period. And I found this interesting quote and perspective from Douglas Cootie, who says, the trick is to look at depression due to boredom as if you're drowning. Just as you would struggle to stay afloat, you use mental activities to keep your mind engaged and not distracted. With practice, you'll start to see warning signs of an attention slump and avoid it with greater ease. So I thought that was interesting.
I think
for what
it's
that's
great.
worth.
Yeah, it is fun. Okay.
This one comes from the Bronx Zoo. Hello, New York. We've got a commute from central New Jersey to the Bronx Zoo for my job. This drive can take anywhere from an hour and 20 minutes to 2 hours one way, which means a lot of hours in the car. That is a significant commute.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Some days I take public transportation, which allows me to read, sleep, dance, whatever I feel like, but that comes with its own challenges. My question is, do you have any advice for ADHDers with a dreaded commute? I have podcasts I listen to, audiobooks, radio, music, etc., but even with all the entertainment, I still get bored. Some days totally fine, others I feel myself on the verge of tears and frustration. Time is always a challenge for me, and when I'm hyper aware of my time spent commuting, it really gets to me. I'm not sure if this makes sense, but when I'm not on my meds, the commute doesn't feel as bad, because sometimes hours feel like minutes. When I'm on my meds, I can better make lists of things I need to get done, and I feel the precious motivation to do things, and then I remember I'm in the car in traffic not doing them. Your podcast has really helped. Power to the people. I feel like I'm sitting with a couple of friends, and thank you for keeping them short. Well, you're welcome.
Except for this one.
Except for this one. Yeah. Sorry. Listen to it over 2 days. Anyhow, this is thanks so much from the New York City subway. Kelsey. Thank you, Kelsey, for jumping in here. This is a great question.
It is. And I actually, in my notes, I wrote, Pete, question mark. Because I really thought you would probably be the best person to answer this. And the only thing that came up to my mind is that what you focus on grows. And so if you go into it thinking this is going to suck and this is going to be an awful experience and I'm going to get bored and I'm going to get antsy, that's what's going to happen. And so I would probably think about just how can you shift your thinking. However, I know that, that's not easy and it's not always going to work. So I don't know, Pete, what do you think? It's a long commute.
It is a long commute. It is a long commute. That's a lot of hours of time that, can feel like lost time, and that's certainly a perspective. I know when I had a commute that was significant, an hour commute each way, it's still 2 hours a day. You start doing the math. Well, just don't do the math, you know what I mean? Because that starts feeling really crummy. So, I look at the activities that were listed here are consumption activities, apart from the making lists of things to do, and then feeling bad about not being able to do them. But they're all consumption activities. There's podcasts, radio, music, audiobooks. Those are all things that are about just taking things in through your ears. And so I look at this and I think, is there a way to change the way you think about the time that's on the train? What are the activities that you can engage in, active activities, right, that can actually get yourself engaging in content rather than just consuming content? And so I'm thinking, why don't you start with trying a journaling practice, right? Maybe this is, in fact, this email that you wrote to us would be a great first post in Day One or Evernote journal, right? Is to sit down and type it out on your phone or get out a laptop or whatever you carry with you and start there. Maybe you decide to write a book. Maybe you buy a sketchbook and keep it in your bag and teach yourself to draw. Like what are those activities that you can actually start? I mean, this is one of the, it sounds so simple, but let's find a hobby. Right? Let's find something for that time. I have a neighbor who considers commute time on the clock time, right? So as soon as the bus doors close, as soon as the train closes, she's emailing, she's calling, she's reviewing reports. She uses the commute time and intentionally takes public transit because that time has become so valuable. Is there some activity related to your work that you can engage in somehow on your commute, right? Is there some activity? I don't know. I know zoos are complex organisms and, if you're not actively, are you working in a cage with an animal, or are you, are you in an office, administrative staff? If that's the case, maybe there's some work that you could do to engage in and make that time, active rather than consumptive. So I know that there are lots of reasons that activity like that won't work in each individual case. I think my call is, start to change the way you look at the time. Like you said, Nikki, right? What you think about, that's what's going to grow. How you think about your time. If you think about it as prison time, like boredom and inactive, that's what it's going to be. And so, what can keep your hands busy while you're actively doing this? Spin up a game of Pokemon Go. Right?
There you go.
Do something. That's the trick. Those are my thoughts.
I love that. I love it.
Right.
Very good.
Next one is this one. We got thoughts on this one.
Well, this came from a Patreon member, and I wanted to add it into our podcast because I'm sure there's a lot of people that have this question.
And that question is it important as an adult to get an official ADHD diagnosis? If so, why? I'm pretty sure I have it. And after asking me a few questions, my psychiatrist gave me a Ritalin prescription, which helps. I listen to podcasts and read books about ADHD. What else would I get from an official diagnosis?
Okay, well, first of all, I want to highlight what some of our members said, because this is the great thing. One of the great things about this community is they like to talk about their own experiences. One person said, yes, it's important for accommodations. That's very true. If you are a student or an employee and you need accommodations, you can't do that without an ADHD diagnosis from a doctor. So that's going to be important to have. Somebody else said the diagnosis gave them peace of mind because now they understand that they really do have a neurobiological basis for my struggles. It's not just them. It's not them being crazy, lazy. What was that book? Am I just crazy, lazy? No, I have ADHD. So there's a book about that. Right. And then another member said, you got to make sure that it's the right diagnosis. A medical professional needs to do their due diligence because there could be anxiety, there could be depression, there could be a lot of other things going on that maybe not be or may not be ADHD related. So I agree with everything that our members have said. I think it is important to get a diagnosis. Plus, as a person myself, if they were to give me Ritalin or give me some kind of medication, I want to know. So does this mean I have ADHD? Like, I want clarity from the psychiatrist who gave me this medication. Like, what does this mean? What does it mean to have ADHD? What if it isn't ADHD? Having as much power or knowledge that you can around this, I think, is going to give you power to really understand who you are. One of the things that I've really been working a lot in my coaching practice in the last year or so is not just going to strategies on how to deal with ADHD or, what's going to help me with my time management, but it's really having that conversation with someone about how ADHD affects them, how much they can understand it about themselves and accept it. And then we can move on to other things. Mm-hmm. So that piece, that diagnosis piece, I feel is really important.
I think that's really important too. I think it's great. I also would remind everybody that you don't have to wait for a diagnosis to implement things that help you live your life. I'm leery about, as soon as she said her psychiatrist asked her a few questions and prescribed Ritalin, that's the thing that makes me uncomfortable about the whole experience. Like, I would want an official diagnosis. I'd want to know, I'd want to have all the I's dotted and the T's crossed before you start taking, medication, make sure it's right. I think that was too easy of a prescription the way it's documented here.
It was too easy of a prescription. And why Ritalin? Why not a different medication? Right. I think that there's got to be a lot more conversation with this doctor than what this person's having, because I agree. I mean, you got to understand, why this, what is this going to do for me? Like, you got to give me some information. One of the things you said, though, that I think is very important, whether you have ADHD or not, you can implement things to make your life easier. Absolutely right. There's so much, so many of the things that we say, Pete, help people who don't have ADHD.
Right.
They're good systems. They're simple systems. They're, they're productive. They can work. And so you don't have to have the diagnosis for that. But I think for you to really understand how your brain works and how everything's sort of connected, you got to get more information than just a prescription of Ritalin.
And the book is You Mean I'm Not Lazy, Stupid, or Crazy? The classic self-help book for adults with attention deficit disorder by Kate Kelly and Peggy Raimondo.
Yes, that's it.
Shout out to Casey. Thank you, Casey, in the chat room. Yeah. Okay. So we have another question here. Oh, dear. See, this one is so close to home for me.
I know. In fact, it is for you. So I am
literally
not going to answer it. It is all you, Pete Wright.
Well, I'm going to do my best to read something. It's a little bit long, so I'm going to read some pieces of it. Wow, thank you, Pete, for what you said from the episode on October 23rd about your systems. I'm the same way as you, where I spend hours upon hours setting up templates, organizing tools, and other systems to get myself organized. I, too, will spend a ton of time trying new tools to see what works for me to manage my cases. I use 2 spreadsheets, Trello, and calendars, paper and electronic, and this is condensed as I have used additional tools in the past. My coworkers don't understand why I need to do this. They also say things to me like, wow, you're beyond organized. And I think, if only you knew how hard it is for me and how much time I put into this. Like you, I need to do this as it keeps me on top of what I need to do. While it is usually helpful, sometimes doing this legwork prevents me from doing what I actually should be doing. And then the questioner goes into some examples of ending up all these different tools, iOS shortcuts, Autocrat, UltraDocs, building automations. Because of the obsession and hyperfocus on this, I get very behind on my report writing and now have 25 hours of writing I'm behind on. So this is really tricky because, especially because when you run into a challenge, when the system breaks, your mind goes so quickly into, I need to now go fix the system without actually working on the work. And that's a dangerous paradox, right? So all I can say is something that has given me a little bit of peace I would say in the last year. And as a result of a lot of how we talk about, systems on the show and how we talk to ourselves, our self-talk and limiting beliefs, it has helped me to begin to build in time in my schedule that allows me to intentionally work on systems, right? Where
I like that.
Right, where I stop and say, you know what, I'm gonna stop working right now. Maybe it's a Saturday afternoon, maybe it's a Monday morning, maybe it's a whatever, and I'm gonna spend 4 hours straight working on systems, and I'm gonna block that time on my calendar. And what that has done is, first of all, it's ridiculously difficult to do. I'm going to say that out loud. It's really hard to do because all I want to do is that. That dopamine push, it just tells me to do more of that. But what it has allowed me to do, I've seen over time, kind of implementing this, it's given me permission to add things that I want to do on a list, right? Notion is a new app, and it's one of those that I'm doing this with in particular. All I want to do is put my whole life in Notion, and I want to spend a whole week doing it in Notion. But instead, I make appointments with myself to say, hey, I'm going to spend 2 hours on this Friday afternoon, and I'm going to build this Notion database or something. I'm going to move another system into Notion. And knowing that is on the calendar a week out or 2 weeks out gives me permission not to get lost in it and to live in the existing system today, right? The system that's working for me, even if it's a little bit broken, it allows me to stay present in what's working today. Does that make sense? Am I spinning there?
No, I like it.
I wish I had more to say. I wish I had that sort of silver bullet kind of response that will help. But all I can say is I am constantly trying things here to try to make that work. And this is the latest one that is giving me some peace.
I like it. I like that you're giving yourself permission.
Yeah. That has
I
been
think
a big
that's
one.
the bottom line.
Now, we did get a set of questions coming in this fantastic year-end Q&A that were for a very special guest.
Yes. This is Monica. This is my assistant, Monica.
Hi, Monica.
And she has been a blessing to me. These are two very pivotal people in my life, Pete and Monica, for my business, and outside of my business too. You guys are just great people. So yes, it was really cool because one of our listeners had a question for Monica, and I thought that was very nice for her to think about all of the things that happen on the back end. And so let's see, Monica, you and I have been working together for about 3 years now, right?
Oh my God, has it really been that long already?
Yeah, I think it's been about 3 years.
Wow, that's crazy. So yeah.
It is crazy. And she does a lot of different things for me. She does some admin stuff, replies to a lot of people that, do inquiries and things like that. But one of the things that she's done that has been so pivotal in my business is she is a Facebook expert. And she has taken my social media and she manages it all. And so, yes, there were some questions coming your way. So I just go ahead and ask them.
Well,
Pete,
yeah.
Is that what you'd like me to do?
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
Ask the questions. Here we go. Get ready. Monica in the hot seat.
Okay.
Ready.
How do you like working for the Taking Control podcast and ADHD Nation?
I didn't even know we were a nation.
I didn't either.
So I had explained to Melly that, and first of all, thank you so much. I mean, it's been honestly really great to be able to work with both of you guys. My response is that you're actually one of my best clients. I know you've heard me say, if I can just clone you, that would be awesome. Yeah, and I enjoy it thoroughly. It's been awesome.
Fantastic. And I didn't know we were a nation either, so I think that's pretty darn cool.
That's fantastic. Yeah. No, we just strive for greatness. That's what we're doing.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so the next question for Monica, do you have any personal experience with ADHD? If not, has working in this arena affected your thoughts or feelings on ADHD as a disorder or even dispelled any stereotypes you may have had?
Yeah. So, other than working with Nikki, I don't have any direct experience with ADHD. As I explained to Melly, that I just have, from what I've learned, I have a lot of compassion for the people who struggle. And because the struggle is obviously real. On my end, what I do is, I do my best to find and share content that I know that's going to resonate in the hearts of, the people that are on the social media and engaging with it, that are just doing their best to get through the day-to-day with their ADHD. And so my thoughts are, if I can put a smile on someone's face through something that we share or help to find, articles or information that others can use to share to educate their friends and family about ADHD, then I feel like I've done my job.
And you have very, very well. Because I think, one of the interesting things about working with Monica is that you didn't have the experience with ADHD. So there was definitely a learning curve at the beginning that we started working together, because you are pulling these articles out and looking for information. And she was so great of asking me a lot of questions and, and not only asking me the questions, but really paying attention to what people were responding to and how they were reacting. And so we would know that this is a topic that means a lot to people, and that's what we would continue to share and grow.
Exactly.
The
So Pete, you have to ask
favorite.
the last one,
I know.
because this is just, it'd be weird me asking you.
My favorite question, finally and lastly, is working with Nikki just a nonstop display of sunshine and positivity?
It's a ray of sunshine. It's always a pleasure to work with you, Nikki. It really is. Like I said, you're one of my favorite clients. We just need to clone more client people like you.
Well, what's so funny is I was at the I was at the ADHD conference, and we were talking about communication, and we were talking about tone of voice. And one of my comments was, I think that when I work with my people, Pete and Monica and whoever else I might work with, I try to be very nice and kind and fluffy, almost I kind of fluff my thank you. I try to be really nice and everything. But when I really need something or I really have an opinion on something, all the fluff goes away.
I would say that you still are very, very, it makes such a huge difference in terms of how you communicate. You know what I mean? It's like, especially with everything that's going on in this day and age. And we've talked about that. It's like, with everything going on, it takes so little effort to be kind.
Right.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Yay for kindness.
Yes. And I appreciate you too very, very much. So thank you. Thank you for coming on the show, Monica. This is
for sure. Oh my God. So whoever's watching this, excuse me, I'm still in this is what it looks like to work virtually from home.
I should say, Monica, you are such a good sport, because 7 minutes ago, I wrote you and said, hey, you should totally come on the show and do your own answers to this question. And you were like, okay, yes, I will do that. And I am so excited about that. So thank you so much for taking your part and answering in real time. This is so great. And I'm so glad to get your face on the live stream so the patrons can see who you are, because you're such a big part to all of this. So thank you. And we're going to let you go, and we'll get back to the show. These are some great questions. I love these little questions. So we have a whole set of questions we're going to buzz through really quick. Number one, Pete always signs off at the end of every episode by mentioning his appreciation for the listeners' quote, time and attention. Was the use of this word attention intentional or a happy accident?
Well, I don't really know if it was intentional on your part. I just remember you using it and me loving it right away and making it intentional after that. We got to keep using this.
Yeah, and I think you started using it in web copy and email copy, and I think it just sort of happened. It was one of those things that came out of my mouth accidentally, and I knew the moment I heard it back in my own ears that this is something that's going to stick. This just feels right.
It feels right, and can I just say one thing? Yeah. That one of the reasons why I love it so much is that we understand that time is valuable, and if you're taking the time to listen to us, especially to the very end, it deserves a big thank you.
Yeah, huge. Yeah. Especially at these mammoth end of the year episodes that are longer than a half hour. We're sorry again. Yes. All right, here we go. For Nikki, in the episode entitled Organizing What You Learned from January of this year, you discussed how you took notes during the 2017 CHAD conference, as well as noting your desire to switch to a full keyboard or even a laptop for the workshops to make it easier to capture the messages. You stated that you would alter your behavior and begin this new way to collect conference data for the 2018 conference as you've returned now from the 2018 CHAD Plus conference. Did you, in fact, implement this new strategy? If yes, did you find it helpful in recording information?
I laugh because I don't even remember saying that. In January of 2018 on organizing what you learned. So it's funny because I really don't remember saying that. But I will tell you, I did not get a different keyboard or laptop. That never even crossed my mind, even though it may have at that point. It didn't going into the conference this year. Mm-hmm. But there were some changes, and I was very intentional about my changes. The first one was I was very careful with the classes that I took. I wanted to make sure that I took only classes that I didn't know a lot about, or I was really learning something brand new. So I didn't want to take any organizing classes, for example. I didn't want to take any kind of time management classes, just because that was not where I felt I needed more information. I took a lot of classes around college students, coaching college students. I took a lot of classes on communication and emotional regulation. And those were the things that I was very intentional about what I took. I was very intentional the way that I took notes. I took photos of the important slides. So instead of trying to write everything down, I would just take a photo of the slide and then make a little note on my paper that it was on the slide. When I did get back this conference, I did make a point to be more organized with my material, and I went through it and I tried to implement it where I could. Got a couple of guests on the show right away that I wanted to have. There's still things that I want to take out of the information, but I definitely feel like there was a huge improvement this time around than last time. I don't feel like it was just being, written down and then put away forever. I feel like I'm actually doing something with it.
Yeah, that's huge. That's great. That's a good recap.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you.
Has there ever been an episode of the podcast that you've recorded and subsequently decided not to air for any reason? Have you completed a recording of the show only to find that the last 30 to 60 minutes never actually recorded, so you have to start over or table it for another time? Apologies if this conjures bad memory.
Well, kudos to you, Pete, because this has only happened maybe 1 or 2 times that I can remember. And I think it's because you are so dialed into the technology of what it takes to record, produce, and edit a podcast that this has not been an issue. The one time I remember it was with a guest, but I do not think it was on our end. If I remember correctly, I believe that it was on their end that didn't get recorded or something went wrong. Fortunately, that guest was very awesome, and she was willing to come back and record. So, it is what it is. And I remember having us maybe 1 or 2 times where we were like, that didn't work or something didn't go. But more than anything, I remember me saying, "Oh, Pete, we have to start over."
Yeah. Well, sometimes you just start talking and you're like, and I mean, that's the royal you, not you, Nikki, but sometimes we just start talking and you have this whole thing in your head about what is going to come out of your mouth and how it's going to play out. And those periods where you get through a whole segment that you've talked for 15 minutes and then you think, gosh, where I started is not where I meant to, this is not where I meant to end up.
That's not what I meant to say, and it came out wrong. And so there's been many times where we have just started over on our own. And I'll be honest with you guys, when the times that it's happened, which has been very few, I've never gotten mad or upset because I always felt like the second one was going to be better anyway. And so,
which is a good way to think about it.
It is. I mean, I just always felt like, okay, well, the second recording is going to be better. But you are a pro at this podcast and things.
Oh, that's very kind.
Kudos to you.
It is very kind. As it is the end of 2018, if you could travel back to January 1, 2018, Nikki and Pete, and give your past self a piece of advice to navigate the year, what would that be? And what is one piece of advice that you would like to give future Nikki and Pete of 2019? You go first. This
was such a hard question because, you think about, okay, business or personal, there's so many different things.
Yeah.
And I guess my question or my answer is that it's a little bit of both. I'm probably answering this with my business in mind, my clients in mind, but also with my family and my own personal journey. When you pay attention to things that are happening around you, whether they're good or bad, and you don't like it, and you start to do something about it, that's to me where the kind of the magic opens up for you. So to be not so vague, I think Pete and I have both been, somewhat open about some of the struggles we've had personally in our life the last year about depression and anxiety and some of those things that have kind of come up and down. And it's really sweet because the person who asked this question thinks of me as being a ray of sunshine and always very positive. But there's been moments where, it takes everything I have, all the energy I have to portray that in my work life. But when I started noticing that it was much, much harder outside of work life, that's when I started thinking, okay, I need to do something about this because it's not working. So I would just say that when you pay attention, then I don't know, it's one of those things that things start to open for you. Things, important people all of a sudden kind of show up in your life that you need to listen to and, that kind of thing.
And for 2019?
Keep searching. keep searching for those things that inspire me, that motivate me, that make me feel alive, that give me joy. I want to keep searching to be the best coach that I can be, which means, doing a lot of research on coaching, ADHD, new ways to work with clients, listening to my clients. The journey is just starting. So I'm going to keep searching, keep paying attention.
That's lovely. I think my 2018 message is be generous of time and spirit. I love that. I think it's just there comes with age. And I've started to be more reflective of that my 20s and 30s were so much about me, and about, acquisition and like, I don't know, getting a house and cars and things like that. Babies. Like, do I have enough babies? Do I have enough to be, set? And I realize that is, I think you have to go through that. And then there comes a time where you're like, you know what? If I'm thinking more about others and helping others have fun and be successful and learn, then that reaps kind of its own rewards internally, where it counts. And things happen for a reason. There's if I just approach it generously, how can I approach any situation generously? And then for 2019. I'm brought back to this Margaret Wheatley quote. She's this leadership consultant, but I really like this quote. There is no power for change greater than a community discovering what it cares about. And I find that so moving. I just love it. And this year has been such a year of emergent behavior, right? I look at this group, right? The ADHD community is, coming together and figuring out what's important. If the question had been for us in 2012, I wish I could go back and say, start the Discord now. Like, let's get people together now, get people talking to one another now. Because apart from the just terrific joy that I get from doing this, working on this podcast with Nikki, there has been no greater gift for me on this entire show than seeing people engaging in one another in Discord and Facebook and all these as a result of the show. That is just incredible. It really is mind-blowing.
It is. And I have to say, I think with just reflecting back in 2018, that has been by far, I think, one of the most moving things for me to see. More of a connection to the work that we do, connection to this community, getting to know people, is definitely been a huge, huge success. And I'm so excited to see what it brings to, what the future brings to that. And it's so important to have that community and that connection. And I love that I'm honored that we get to do that we get to bring these people together.
Me too. Okay. Last question, I think, of the day. Do you feel like you have collected enough unedited recordings over the years to create a blooper reel? I would pay to hear that. Maybe another tier option for Patreon.
I don't know. Do you keep any of that? I thought you just kind of edit and it goes away. But
well, I do. I mean, I stock up on the master files. I have them all on a big hard drive. But I did have the great, techno crash of last year and lost years of the unedited stuff. Like that makes this conversation really easy, because I don't have a lot of the unedited stuff. What I have is memories of I have these memories of just hysterical moments where one of us misspoke or said something naughty or whatever, where we just go into hysterical, spit inducing fits, convulsive laughter. And I wish we had more of those. But honestly, I don't know if I would want to share them. We're not a blooper kind of show. And I find those things sort of personally precious as kind of the work that I do with you, Nikki, and so I feel pretty good about not making much of a blooper. We're not really a morning zoo kind of a show. So, but I love that question
Pete,
came through.
Edit that out, Pete. You gotta delete that.
So anyhow. That's it. That's the answer. But I do appreciate that the question has come in. And also that implies that I would have to listen to them all to find those nuggets, and I'm not crazy about that.
I don't think you would be doing that. No.
So anyhow. This has been great. It's an epic year, and this is certainly, I think, the longest episode of the year. So thank you all for hanging tight with us. Any closing words to close out 2018, Nikki Kinzer?
No, well, yes, because I said no, and then here I am talking.
Yeah, right.
That'd be one of those things. Okay, Pete, you can edit that out, but you don't really need to. I would want to say, just thank you to everybody who listens to us and who is part of our Patreon community. And whether you are or not, we love you. We love this show. We love doing the show together. It is probably, I would say, one of the most humble experiences sometimes when we get these emails and we hear what people are saying and how we have helped them in some way. And I'm just very honored to be a part of that. And, cheers to many, many more and new shows coming up. And we've been doing this for a long time.
I learn something new every single week. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time and your attention this whole year and many years to come. And here is wishing you all a terrific holiday season. We'll be back in early January. We got lots of good stuff coming up. So thanks all. Discord's open. Facebook's open the entire holiday. So hang with each other. Hang with us. We'll be in and out. And we'll catch you in 2019.
In January.
Wow. Yeah. Thanks, everybody.